So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, we hope that you are all well and safe. We are glad to welcome you to this information webinar about the IPA4SME action. My name is Rassami Couturier. I am a project manager at GoPacom, that is partner in the IPA4SME consortium, and I will support the team for this webinar. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Mr. Wawrzyniec PERSCHKE, who's a policy officer at the DG for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs of the European Commission. Our two speakers will be Cristina de la Massa and Marco Grazzadio. Both are from CASA, which is the IPA4SME consortium leader, and they will drive us through the different points of the agenda, which is displayed now on the screen. Last but not least, please feel free to write down your question in the chat box. Your questions will be addressed at the end of the presentations during the Q&A session. For any specific questions, these will be followed up individually by email by the IPA4SME Coordination Center. I wish you a successful webinar, and I leave the floor to Mr. PERSCHKE.
Welcome, and thank you for participating in this webinar. We are very pleased that you are joining us and willing to cooperate on the link between the IP scan services and the IPA4SMEs co-funding of patent costs. We would like to tell you about the basics of why have we created this link and how this link should work. Colleagues at the IPA4SME projects will dive into the details, and I'll try to give you a brief introduction. We wanted to build on the IP scan, as this is a tool that contributes to IP management and is part of our key actions of the policy communication of the EU issued in November last year, that aims, among others, to help SMEs use and manage their intellectual property. And IP scan is a perfect entry tool for IP management by SMEs. Now, we do realize that in the case of number of IP scans, there are recommendations that would usefully be followed up, and that kind of recommendations may require some investment from SMEs. In certain cases, SMEs could be able to bear the costs by themselves. In others, it may be challenging. And specifically, when SMEs receive recommendations in relation to the protection of technical inventions, that may entail costs if the SMEs decide to protect specifically with patents. Patents tend to be relatively expensive, both for getting advice on and potentially registering beyond the national IP offices. And in this case, we would like to think of how to enable the co-funding of patent costs. Currently, the EU Intellectual Property Office within the SME Fund does not offer this possibility. At the same time, under IPA4SME, this possibility was limited to Seal of Excellence SMEs. We have found a legal way to extend the target group, and therefore the target group now includes SMEs that are identified by member state authorities, and you are the ones that are acting on behalf of member states authorities in order to identify those innovative SMEs that could rely on the IPA4SME co-funding. And the thing that is necessary to do is basically that the SMEs go through an IP scan or a similar service provided nationally, and that you issue to them a certificate that indicates that they may decide to apply for a patent. we obviously would like that you do some very basic background check in relation to the issuance of the certificate. And so we would like to make sure that you did discuss that this innovation is of technical nature, that you did broadly discuss the protection options, including the use of trade secrets, but also use of other intellectual property rights if relevant. And that either you did see an initial prior art search or you performed an initial prior art search, or at minimum you encouraged the SME to do a prior art search before considering applying for a patent. Now, all these checks that I mentioned should be proportionate to the overall IP scan exercise. They are not meant to be thorough, only to the level that is planned within an IP scan. And as usual for the IP scan, you're not supposed to take responsibility for the decision, as the decision is up to the SME. It's ultimately only an indication that they may take that steps if they wish so, and if they follow up with certain actions that give them further reassurance as to the sensibility of making such an application. So this is in a nutshell our policy overall environment, where we stress the IP management by SMEs and hope that if they need support in relation to patents through the link with IPA4SME, we can provide that kind of support. I will now pass the floor to colleagues from the IPA4SME projects for further details on how the two activities can cooperate on the specificities of IPA4SME, and I'll be staying with you in order to answer further questions at the later stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Thank you very much. So, well, some of you, you have been working with us for the 2 years that the action has been running. Might be that some of the details are not so clear, and that's the idea for today, to integrate the experts and the national IP offices that were not aware on our activities, plus clarify some aspects, because we are now dealing with a new profile of beneficiaries. But the action that we are running 2 years, as I mentioned, with more than 610 SMEs already benefited from the IPA4SME services, with nice testimonials that now that we can check, and they are published in our website. And what we are co-financing is both the IP pre-diagnostic and the IP protection, though the session today is mainly focused on the support as services for the IP protection. For that purpose, we have two different services. We have somehow the support for the IPO registration fees, and there is an amount of the 75% up to 2,500 euros per patent application. And the companies, the SMEs, can also benefit from the legal financially supporting the legal advice from a patent attorney, and this support is up to 2,000, and that it means 50% of the fees for the attorney. We are informing continuously the companies, and there is a reference in our website for the events that we are organizing monthly to support the companies just not only for applying, but also for knowing how is the process, the procedures for getting the final financial support from the European Commission at the end. We also want to share with them and with you other experiences by the news, some articles that we are publishing in different media, including being active in the social media, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can also send your questions to the help desk at IPA4SME.eu. And the next, please. Rasami, please, the next. Yes, and here is the calendar of the coming calls that we will be opening. There will be the last calls for the action in 2021, and we are closing a call by the end of May in 15 days, 27th of May. Then there will be another one closing on the 20th of July, and the last one for the 7th of September. And what is new from what we've done until now, the beneficiaries for the 2 years that we've been running were the companies holding the seal of what is called Seal of Excellence from the EIC Accelerator program. And there is a condition that this Seal of Excellence has to be dated with 3 years prior to the date of the cutoff. But now what it comes and what is important for the session today and the webinar is to clarify this new profile of beneficiaries that are the ones, SMEs coming from an IP pre-diagnostic exercise or service provided by your offices from any EU member state or from other COSME member state. What is also a condition to be a beneficiary is to meet the criteria of being an SME, it has to be a company in a European country or in a COSME country. Next, please. So we are focusing on these two types of services that I mentioned: the fees for the EPO, patent registration, and the support for the patent attorney. And now what we need as selection criteria from our office, from the coordination center, we need a document that supports the SME as identified as innovative, meaning that they already covered an IP pre-diagnostic strategy or service. And this will be the document supporting that this company might be beneficiary from our services. Then when we receive all the applications, what we call cutoff is the time when we create the ranking of companies. And in the case of companies coming from a certificate from an IP pre-diagnostic service, they will be ranked on a first-come, first-served basis. And what is a condition also is that the certificate has to be issued no more than 3 years prior to the date of the cutoff. So additional conditions for the creation of the ranking. Well, if there is a coincidence in the date of applications, the preference will be given with the companies that didn't receive any support from our action yet. If there is again a coincidence, there will be given preferences to the company that have been incorporated more recently, and a final condition will be a preference that will be given for the companies, smaller companies, fewer employees. Next, please. So, well, this is the main information. You can also find it in our website. The help desk is always ready for answering any questions. But during the last days that we've been exchanging information for organizing this webinar, we already received some questions that could start and open our discussion. There is a question, and Bob, if you can help me in the clarification for the questions. So there's a first question. would the certificate fulfill the needs of the program and serve as basis for an access to funding in the IPA4SME schema for those companies that have been consulted an IP scan in the framework of the SME Fund EU IPO? So the answer is yes. Yes, this will be this certificate that supports that the company has been working, has been served with the IP scan under the SME Fund. This certificate would be supporting the company as beneficiary for the IPA4SME services. Yes. Second question, both of you could help me. Can our expert also issue this certificate to companies with which they have performed an IP scan outside the SME Fund or therewith open access for funding in IPA4SME for them?
Yeah, definitely. Just confirmation that national services that are similar to IP scan, IP pre-diagnostic services, IP audit services are also possible, and your colleagues from the IP offices have received the list of conditions for similar services to be recognized as equivalent, and the fact that you're participating means that they have confirmed that those nationally provided services are equivalent, so you're safe.
Okay, so another question: should the national IP offices have to send any documentation to the SMEs for applying to these benefits? Yeah, well, this is a matter of coordinating with us in the communication with the potential beneficiaries. We don't have any direct contact with the SMEs. We only have the contact from the SMEs that already applied for our IP pre-diagnostic, but we are talking about a completely new profile. So the only way to get to the SMEs for us is through you. We are ready. That's why we also have GopaCom with us. We are ready to prepare any communication content for you for clarification and for being used for the communication to the companies. But the direct contact is yours in this case.
Indeed, as many of the national offices rightly point out to the limits of the data protection regulation, IPA4SME team is very much ready to provide the necessary communication tools, but it is up to IP offices to forward it to the potentially eligible SMEs in order for them to be able to apply and in order for them to understand what are the opportunities.
Okay, then another question: does the certificate guarantee the SME the availability of the funding means? Well, it guarantees that the company will be in the ranking of the potential beneficiaries of the support. Or does the certificate only make the SME eligible to apply for the funding? Well, I mean, for each of the cutoffs, we have a corresponding budget, and it will depend on the budget that will be assigned to each cutoff, the possibility of finally being beneficiary for the company. So the certificate initially is for being eligible.
And we can confirm that among the companies that are joining from IP scans provided through the SME Fund or nationally, the application of first come, first served rule will be the way of ranking those companies. So the sooner you apply, the better it is.
Okay, yeah, and then the last one: until which date at the latest will the SME have to hand in the payment receipt in order to get the reimbursement. So as soon as the company is awarded, as soon as the company presents the first documents for, and I think Marco is going to give us the details on the procedures. As soon as they are presenting the documents for about the payments, the payments of the fees, the payments of the patent attorney, we are ready to support the companies, to finance the companies. But the time for presenting the documents will be until the end of this year, 31st of December 2021. So, I mean, there is a time for the companies to prepare and to organize both the work with the patent attorney and select the patent attorney if they don't have any with whom they have been working, and then to prepare the process for the EPO patent. Yeah. Rosami, I don't know if we can open the microphones in case there are other additional questions from now.
Yes, so we have received already a few questions in the chat. Let's check, but maybe this can be. Okay, so we have one question which is relevant where we are now. So Mr. Roger Hildebrandt has asked, how can the experts be sure that their certificate to issue after the IP scan is eligible for funding for the IPA4SME scheme? If one of you could answer.
Sure. The template of the certificate is agreed between the Commission and the National IP Office. It's being shared with the IPA4SME team, and as long as the certificate sticks to the template and is known to IPA4SME team, that indicates that the SME is going to be eligible for application. So it is important that the certificate is identical to what has been agreed between the IP office and the Commission, but every national IP office has done so.
Okay, thank you. We also have another question from Mr. Hildebrandt. Dear Wawka and Christina, can the national experts also issue a certificate to companies with which they have performed an IP scan outside the SME fund and therewith open access for funding in the IPA4SME scheme?
Yes, again, this is an issue that has been mentioned in the past, and especially in documents shared between the Commission and the national IP offices, where there is an indication on what basis the nationally provided IP scans and similar services are treated as equivalent, and as they are those that are equivalent, can be definitely used in order to issue certificates to enable SMEs that have in the past used IP scan services or will be using right now in order to get certificates that allow them to apply for the IPA4SME project.
Okay, thanks a lot. That are the questions that we've received regarding the certificate and the eligibility part. So maybe, Christina, what we could do now is to move on the next topic on the agenda. So this will be the presentation of the 3 services. So as you mentioned to me earlier, you will start with the presentation of the service 1, and then Marco will go on with the services 2 and 3. So while you will be presenting the service 1, I will pass on the screen to Marco to share what he has for us.
Now, just to clarify that the service 1 is not part of this webinar. because
Okay.
I mean, this is something that the experts already know and do as part of their job. So
Okay.
we will jump directly to service 2 and 3.
Okay. So I will
Yeah.
pass on the screen to Marco. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
So Marco, you have the floor.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody, and just give me a second to share my screen with you. I hope you can see it. Just let me move here. So, first of all, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Marco Zaddio, a technology consultant working for CARSA, and I'm here today to explain you how to benefit the most from the two co-financing services we are offering within IPA4SME program in an easy and efficient way. So, as we already said, along with the pre-diagnostic service, we also offered service 2, which is basically a partial reimbursement of European Patent Office, where basically we offer financial and or economic support to cover a percentage of small medium enterprise patents application fees before the European Patent Office. So through these services, a company can receive 75% of the cost, worth up to €2,500 per single patent. And then we also offer service 3, which basically also called the financial contribution for the cost of the external legal advice, which is a service where we basically offer financial support to cover the cost for hiring an IP patent attorney for the purpose of preparing a European patent process. Through these services, a small medium enterprise can receive the 50% of the cost, worth up to €2,000 per single patent application. So as regard to service 2 and service 3, let's say that the process is quite similar. As you can see, as regard to service 2, the overall workflow consists of 5 main steps. So once a company has been selected, the first step is the completion of the IPA4SME self-assessment exercise. Then there is the activation of the services that I will explain you in a few minutes, where basically consists of providing us through the EMS portal invoice and proof of payment. Then there is the request of partial Sami, I'm having problem with the microphone.
No,
I hope.
we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know why it was switched off by itself. Anyway, sorry for the problem. So I was saying that then there is the request of partial reimbursement, and at the end the confirmation of the reimbursement received. So as regard to the time frame, there is a specific time frame company must respect, because what you have to learn here is that once a company has been selected within service 2 and or service 3, being selected does not mean that the service is activated. Activate the service means to provide us through the EMS portal valid documentation, which usually are an invoice together with the corresponding proof of payment. And to do it, basically the company have 4 months to activate the service. In case the company will not be able to activate the service in time, we will directly disqualify them. But in the opposite, in case the company are able to activate the service, again providing us valid documentation, together with receive a first reimbursement, a company will have also the opportunity to provide us documentation for a second payment request. And in this case, they will have until the end of the project, which is the 31 December 2021, for request a second payment reimbursement. However, there is a specific case, which is when a company is awarded with both service 2 and service 3, because only in this case, the activation of either service 2 or service 3, together with giving the company access to the reimbursement, is also give them additionally 4 months to activate the service missing. Just for an example, to understand better how this process works, let's say that I am a company, let's say a Carsa company, applying to receive a service. Let's say that the coordination center informed me that I've been awarded with both Service 2 and Service 3. In case I will be able to activate, for example, Service 2 in time, together with receive a first reimbursement, I will also have the opportunity I will also have 4 additional months to activate this missing Service 1, that is in this example is Service 3. This is the time frame, and is usually the same of Service 3, but in case we'll explain you later on again. So let's go now to move in how to activate the services, because as I explained you before, again, being awarded does not mean that the service is activated. To activate the service, again, a company must provide us through the EMS portal a valid documentation that usually are an invoice together with the corresponding proof of payment. We are now going to see what the invoice and the proof of payment, which are, let's say, the requirement the document must contain in order to be validated. As regard to Service 2, what we need is to activate the services is an invoice. As regard to the invoice, the beneficiary can only be reimbursed once they have 1 or more valid invoice from an IP patent attorney. And to be considered valid, the invoice, first of all, the invoice must be dated after the date of the communication of IPA4SME support. The communication of IPA4SME support basically is the date when we communicate to the companies that they've been awarded with a specific service. So again, are eligible only the invoice dated after the date of the communication of IPA4SME support. Then, to qualify the reimbursement, the invoice must also include the following information, which are basically the name of the patent attorney who offered the services, together with the patent application process, which is namely the title of the invention or the IP being protected, but above all, the invoice must clearly state which are the IPO debit or DEM number covered during the filing process. This is really important for Service 2 because in case the invoice does not contain this information, we cannot consider the invoice eligible. The reason why is because, as you can see in this guide, not all the EPO service fee are covered within IPA4SME, but only the ones included in the following table. Again, this is the reason why an invoice without this information cannot be validated. So just to repeat again, to validate an invoice, the invoice must contain the name of the patent attorney, the patent application process, clearly state which are the IPO fee codes covered during the filing process, and then last but not least, the date where the invoice was issuing must be after the date of the communication of award. It's not mandatory that the invoice must be translated in English. We can accept without any problems invoice in national language, but just to let's say help us in the revision, what we can ask you is to include in the invoice the following model statement, which can help us to revise the documentation quickly. Together with the invoice, as I said before, to activate the service, we must also collect the corresponding proof of payment. As regard to the proof of payment, as you can see, the beneficiary must provide proof that the IP patent attorney invoice has been paid before the partial reimbursement can occur. In this case, only bank transfer receipts, which clearly indicate the name of the beneficiary, the IP patent attorney, and the invoice number will be accepted. Also, in this case, the date of the payment must be after the date of the communication of IPA4SME support. So, when the company collects these two documents, again, what they basically should do is to upload this documentation within the EMS portal. We receive this documentation, we revise the documentation, and in case the documentation meet all the requirements, all in this case we can consider the service activate, and which means that the company will receive a first payment reimbursement. Then the last step is just to confirm the reimbursement received, and as you can see, once the reimbursement has been received from the coordination center, the beneficiary will need to upload a senior confirmation using the model provided in the support documentation section of EMS. This is everything as regard to Service 2. I can move now to the description of Service 3. In terms of workflow, in terms of time frame, is totally the same of what we already see in Service 2. I will try to repeat quickly this information, but again, also in this case, the workflow consists of IPA4SME self-assessment exercise as first test. Then there is the activation of the services also in this case, which means provide us an invoice together with the proof of payment. Once the beneficiary has this documentation, they must request us a partial reimbursement, and in case we validate the documentation, we activate the service and we reimburse the company, and then the last step is just that the company must confirm to have received the reimbursement. Then, as regard to the time frame, again, we can see that is the same explained you before. Again, I will repeat because I prefer like this. But again, so also in this case, in case a company has been awarded with Service 3, we basically notify them with an email. From that day, company will have 4 months to activate the services. If they will activate the service, they will have the opportunity to request a second payment reimbursement. They will have until the 31 December 2021 to do it. Also in this case is valid the service activation extension that I explained you before is something specific for the company who has been awarded with both Service 2 and Service 3. Also, all in this case, again, if a company is able to activate, for example, Service 3 within the timeline, we will provide them additional 4 months to activate the missing service. As regard to the activation of the service, what I really want to say is that it's not mandatory for the company to complete Service 2 before accessing to Service 3. They can, for example, provide us documentation within Service 3 even if they did not activate the Service 2 yet. So again, it's not mandatory to complete Service 2 before to access to Service 3. Indeed, usually what we learn is that the beneficiaries are more, for them it's more easy to activate Service 3 because is the attorney cost before accessing to the reimbursement of Service 2. As regard to the activation, again, also in this case, what we need to collect from the beneficiary is an invoice together with the corresponding proof of payment. So, as regard to the valid IP patent attorney invoice, a beneficiary can only be reimbursed once they have 1 or more valid invoices from an IP patent attorney entitled to act before the EPO. To be considered valid Service 3 reimbursement, indeed, the invoice must be issued by an IP patent attorney who appears on the EPO list of professional representatives and be issued also in this case after the date of the communication of IPA4SME support. Along with these 2 requirements, to qualify the reimbursement, the invoice must also include the following information, which in this case has the name of the patent attorney, the patent application process, which is the title of the invention or the IP being protected, and then the invoice must contain the EPO patent application number when is possible, or a statement regarding the decision to discontinue patent application process. Why this? Because within Service 3, we can reimburse also the cost of the professional advice coming from the expert, even if the company decides for a specific reason to discontinue the patent application process. So, for example, in case you are an expert offering them a preliminary study of the patents, if it's an European patent process, even if the company decides to do not continue the application process, we can reimburse this cost. As regard indeed to the EPO patent application number, I said you before, when possible, because it can happen that the beneficiary already received an invoice from the patent attorney, but maybe since they did not yet complete the application process, they did not have the EPO patent application number. So in case this happens, it's not a problem for us accepting the invoice, even if the EPO patent application number is not included. I will repeat again, as regard to Service 3, the valid invoice will be is validated when containing information such as the name of the patent attorney who provided the services, which must be entitled to act before the EPO. Then the invoice, the date of the invoice must be after the communication of IPA4SME support. Then the invoice must contain the patent application process, namely the title of the invention or the IP being protected, together with, when possible, the EPO patent application number or a statement regarding the decision of the company to discontinue the patent application process. Also in this case, as we said before, it's not mandatory for the company to provide us an invoice in English. They can, without problem, send us an invoice in Italian, Polish, whatever it is. But in case, just to make the revision process easier for us, what we can ask them is to at least include the following model statement in the invoice. Together with the invoice, also in this case, to activate the service, we must also collect from the companies the proof of payment. As regard to the proof of payment, the same as we said before, beneficiary must provide proof that the IP patent attorney invoice has been paid before partial reimbursement can occur. Also, in this case, we can accept only bank transfer receipts, which clearly indicate the name of the beneficiary, the IP patent attorney, and the invoice. Once we collect this documentation, what we do in terms of coordination center is to revise this documentation, and only when we validate them, we can consider, beneficiary can consider Service 3 activate, which means receive a first partial reimbursement. Also in this case, once they receive the first reimbursement, what we ask them is to confirm the reimbursement received. This was everything as regard to Service 2 and Service 3. Sorry for the person coming behind me. And just the last things as regard to Service 2 and Service 3 is that there is these financial important rules for the payment request, where basically say that documents provided by the beneficiary to claim partial reimbursement must only refer to and contain information about one single patent. So in case we receive a documentation containing information about several patents, this will not be allowed, which means that we will disqualify the whole payment request. Therefore, in case a company is contacting you to receive support for more than one patent, we can reimburse them only if they apply different application as many times as the number of the patent for which they see financial support. Just an example, again, Carsa company have 5 patents in the pipeline. If I want to receive financial support for all these patents, what I should do is to apply 5 different times. Because again, one application could be associated to only one patent. From my side, I think this was the last thing, and I don't know now if there is a specific questions for me.
Hi, Marco, this is Razami speaking. So I've gathered all the questions that we've received during the presentations.
Nice.
So yeah, so now I can display them on the screen. And I think
it's better.
This will start the question and answer session.
Okay. Okay. I think that some of the questions should be Christina to answer. At least
yes, thank you, Marco. I think the first question was already answered by Bobka in the previous session. And the second one, how much funding is available for each period? Well, this is something that you can also check in our website, where you find in the library the rules for implementation of the action, all the details. So though it's just a 9 pages document, but it's like a legal document. But at the last page, you see that the initial budget committed for each of the cutoff is in K euros 412 key euros, 1,000 euros. Yes, this is the initial budget committed per cutoff. And there was also a question about how does it work for the company first applying with the system that we are using, our evaluation management system. Then when the cutoff comes, meaning, for example, 27th of May, in between 1 week, 10 days, the companies received it's not like an evaluation summary report, because we don't evaluate, but it's an email mainly that concludes if the company has been awarded or not, and that describes for the company awarded how are the details for the next steps to follow, including the guide that Marco has just explained in detail. So I mean, we are quite quick in the selection process, because the main task that we need to do is check for eligibility, preparing the ranking of companies under the selection criteria that is described in the rules for implementation, and then get the confirmation from the European Commission, in this case from BOCA and the ISMEA team, what is the final list of companies awarded for that cutoff, and they will get the answer quite quick. Yeah, in 7-10 days. This is from Roger. Can we get the template once more for the certificate? Well, of course, after the session today, we are ready to send you the presentations, the questions and answers, and also templates for communication, or whatever any other detail you might need to understand and to communicate our activities to the beneficiaries. Well, yeah, number 4.
Yes, if I could just add, I will share with Roger the template for the certificate as well. So that would be a complete pack.
Okay, and then Bobka, maybe you can go for the 4 as well.
With pleasure. So the prior art search is something that you need to make the SME aware that it's useful for them to do. Obviously, if within your IP scan service you had a very rough one, it's okay, it's enough. If not, then you just recommend to the SME that they should make such a prior search, but it's not mandatory. I hope this is
okay.
clear.
Yes, number 5, could you please show again the funding amounts? So, Rosami, if you can go back in the presentation. So, we announced up in the title the maximum support that a company can get, but that is 15,000. But the main idea is that the same company can apply for different patents. So in case they have several patents, they can apply several times. So even if the support amounts for individual services are 2,000 and 2,500, they can accumulate support for different patents up to 15,000. And then depending on the type of service, we are supporting 75% of the cost or 50% of the cost in the case of the patent attorney. So that means that there are plenty of companies repeating and applying several times and using the service, the two services for different patents.
I will take care of question number 6. This is one for you, Cristina. I think it's for mine.
Yes, thank you.
So, question from Mr. Hildebrand, who is asking us what kind of proof does the small medium enterprise get for the funding and when in the process. As I tried to explain you before, so in case a company has been awarded with Service 2 and or Service 3, to activate the service, what we need from them is to collect an invoice together with the corresponding proof of payment. Both documents must meet specific requirements, and the timeline to the deadline, let's say, to activate the service is 4 months. So once we selected the companies, we communicated them the services awarded by email. We consider this day as the first day. So from that day, the company will have 4 months to activate the service. Activate the service again, provide us a first invoice together with the corresponding proof of payment. As regard to the invoice, please keep in mind that it is not mandatory to send us an invoice containing all the cost. For example, what we can do to stimulate the companies, for example, in Service 3, as expert, or let's say as patent attorney, you can start to provide the company, for example, let's say an invoice containing preliminary study cost of the patent. Also, this cost can be refunded. For us, receive this invoice will be great because we are going to refund the cost, but also this kind of invoice will help the company to activate the service. Once the service is activated, the company will have until the 31 December 2021 to provide us other documentation, which are always invoice and proof of payment. So in this case, as an expert, as patent attorney, you will have more time to complete all the filing process of the patent without being in a hurry. So again, invoice and proof of payment within 4 months, at least to activate the services.
Okay. Question number 7 from Kirsten. Quite important question, and I know, Bobka, I don't have the answer. How old can a national IP scan equivalent be for a company to apply for funding under IPA4SME? How far we can go back?
We agreed to play the equivalent and comparable solution to the Seal of Excellence certificate. And in this case, it means that we are applying the rule of 3 years. So the IP scan equivalent report needs to be issued not later than 3 years prior to the deadline for the applications for IPA4SME. if we have a next cutoff date on the 27th of May, then it means that the IP scan report or similar report needs to be younger than the 27th of May 2018, which is 3 years from the deadline.
Okay. In the case of a national patent application already filed before the IP scan, can an SME receive funding for filing a European patent application within the priority year and claiming priority of the national application?
I can take it as well. So yes, you can. That is not an issue. It's a separate question whether the European Patent Office will treat it, and you've met the deadline for the European Patent Office. We will not check it. What we are going to obviously check is the certificate that is necessary for applying for IPA4SME. And as long as you wish to apply for a new European patent, even if it's based on a national one, it's all good, it's all fine. And it's an even logical step in the management of intellectual property. So this question is, in a sense, logical and justified.
Okay, so these were the only questions that we received, unless someone would like to ask us something else. So I'm asking the audience. No more questions? Christina, Marco, would you like to add something?
Well,
we received sorry,
yeah.
Christina.
Yes,
we received
yes.
just a question now from Miss Lydia, I think. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah. Sorry, Christina, to interrupt you. I don't know if
go ahead. Then I can.
Yeah,
Yes.
Miss Lydia, the surname is quite difficult for me. PERSCHKE is asking us, could a small medium enterprise apply for several patents during the same application period? How will such an application be treated according to the first come first served principle anyway? I will answer directly to this question if it's fine for you. Yes, in case a company has several patents in the pipeline, they can apply several times as the number of the patent for which they look for financial support, and they can do it during the same cutoff call date or in different ones. So, for example, I can apply 5 different times during cutoff call 9, or decide to apply 3 times now and 2 times in a later stage. However, in case the company applies several times within the same cutoff call date, as regards to the served principle, what we usually do is to take the first as the most important. Then, depending on the budget, if the budget is not exhausted, we can consider, we can select also the other application, but this is strongly dependent on the budget. Otherwise, if the budget is exhausted, we will take into account only one of the application. And then there are other 2 questions. I don't know if there are, okay. Question number 10 and 11.
Can a national patent application be funded according to the first come, first served principle anyway? So, I mean, what is clear is that we are financing the EPO patent application. So, national patent applications are not part of the IPA4SME action.
Yeah, exactly.
I would add it's a clear rule that in case of European projects, we are focusing on issues that have a clear European value added. And in this case, when we discussed with the funding committees, it was made clear that it makes more sense to co-finance European patent applications, giving potentially the room for national measures to co-finance national patent applications.
Okay. Number 11, who can apply for IPA4SME, a company or representative? Can the documents be filled by the representative having a power to do that? Anyone from the company can apply, can somehow perform the process of application. The only requirement is to have the certificate and the main information about the company regarding employees and date of the date which the company was created, and general information about the company, but there is no digital signature or any other process for application. So there is no need for a power of attorney or power to sign the application. I assume that an EP patent is seen as a single patent regardless of how many countries are designated.
Well, obviously, because we specified the European value added, we did also indicate that while the European patent is seen as a single patent, we expect applicants to designate at the minimum 2 countries in order to have a cross-border effect. So in order to stay within the rules, one needs to designate at least 2 member states.
Okay, has anyone have a question for us? I think that was it. Christina, Marco, would you like to add something else?
Marco?
Yes, at the end of the day, to activate the service is quite easy. Again, what I can suggest you, what I learned from this project is that a lot of time the company, they are waiting to receive directly only one invoice containing all the cost. We can, for example, share it by official cost or professional cost. So since they are waiting to complete the entire filling process, a lot of times they are not able to provide documentation in the deadline. So again, in order to stimulate the activation of the process, especially as regards of service 3, what I recommend you is to provide them a first invoice. Again, for example, you can include preliminary study cost. Again, this invoice will help us to activate the service and will help the company to receive a first payment reimbursement. And above all, in case a company has been awarded with both Service 2 and Service 3, as I explained to you before, the activation of Service 3 will help the company to have additional 4 months to activate Service 2, which means that the company will have a total of 8 months to complete the filling process. So again, my recommendation is that to provide to the company at least a first invoice containing at least preliminary cost. Then, as regard to the invoice, another things is that it's not mandatory that the company should receive from you two different invoice. What I would like to say is like we can accept the same invoice for both service 2 and service 3. The only important thing is that the invoice clearly state which are the official costs. So I'm referring to the EPO fee covered during the filling process, divided by the professional cost, which in this case are the costs related to the services you are offering them. And for me, I think I say everything.
Okay, yes, from my side is I was considering this session both for clarification of the initial questions, but well, the main idea is to share the contents with you and also just to open the communication. Initially, as we've been doing for when we started the action, you can use the help desk, but you can direct the emails to me as well. Yeah, and until you see how is the process, how the process is working, and I can be also the connection for creating communication contents prepared by our team. So, Bobka, if you want to say something for closing the session.
First of all, I would like to thank everyone for joining, and I would strongly encourage to look at the testimonies that inspire very much how this support service helps SMEs, and wish you very good IP scans to come and good experience with SMEs. Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, thank you very much for the participation. I think we are ready if we don't get any other questions, and open for you to support this new activity that we are starting today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.